Welcome back to NewsX Deep Dive. Today marks a significant day for the Israel-Gaza ceasefires. All 20 remaining and living Israeli hostages held by Hamas have been released as part of the first phase of the peace agreement. In exchange, Israel has begun the process of releasing 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. It took months of negotiations to get the wheel moving. Hello and welcome to this special episode of NewsX Deep Dive, where I explain to you why Israel's surprise attack on Qatar is seen as a turning point in the conflict. On the 9th of September, Israeli forces launched a daring airstrike in Doha, Qatar's capital. The strike targeted a residential compound in the upscale West Bay Lagoon neighborhood, known for its luxury villas, diplomatic residences, and its proximity to key Qatari landmarks like the Pearl Qatar. Senior Hamas leaders, including chief negotiator Khalil al-Hayya and deputy Zahir Jabarin, were the focus of the attack. 15 Israeli aircrafts, including F-35 stealth jets, deployed 10 precision-guided munitions, hitting a single villa and causing significant structural damage and explosions. 6 people lost their lives, including a Qatari Internal Security Forces member. Throughout the war, Israel has launched strikes in Iran, Lebanon, Syria, and Yemen, in addition to Gaza, but this was different. Qatar is an ally of the United States of America that hosts a strategic U.S. airbase with 10,000 American troops. Trump and his team have had to come to view the Persian Gulf nation as a trusted partner in the negotiations between Israel and Gaza. The parents of an Israeli hostage had met with Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Al Thani in Doha just that morning. Following the strikes in Doha, the UN General Assembly convened in New York City with world leaders gathering along the East River. It was on the sidelines that the discussions really took a turn, as described by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. President Trump met with leaders from the Arab and Muslim majority nations at the UN General Assembly to discuss and promote his 20-point Gaza peace plan. According to Rubio, Trump's UN gathering was instrumental in creating a coalition that facilitated the proposal discussion with Netanyahu at the White House later on the 29th of September. Crucially, during that visit, Trump persuaded Netanyahu to call on Al Thani, the Qatari Prime Minister, to apologize for the Israeli strikes in Qatar. Seeing the United States pushing Israel over the strike in Doha helped persuade Qatar, Turkey and other Arab governments to press Hamas, making it clear that the time for delays and foot-dragging was over. On the 30th of September, 20-point peace proposal for Gaza was unveiled alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. As negotiations advanced, both the US and Arab negotiators chose to convey a united and optimistic front. Ultimately, on the 8th of October, Israel and Hamas reached an agreement on the first phase of Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan in Egypt. This marked a stalled negotiation, coming just one day after the second anniversary of Hamas's 7th October attack that had ignited the war. Today, 20 Israeli hostages have been reunited with their families. Israel has initiated the release of 2,000 Palestinian prisoners from Gaza, marking a major step towards peace after a grueling 2-year war. But what does this truly mean? We take that conversation forward with Professor Madhav Nalapat, the editorial director of the Sunday Garden, with us. Professor Nalapat, I have to understand from your perspective, sir, where do the developments that have taken place today leave the peace of the Middle East?
Look, the fact of the matter is that Qatar has got a huge influence in the White House, and we were talking about Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, his daughter Ivanka. The fact of the matter is that if you look at the fine print, you will see that there are very lucrative Qatari contracts for several close members of the Trump family and several close friends of Donald J. Trump. So Qatar has over the years built up sizable influence in the Trump White House, especially since Donald Trump was basically declared elected the president in November last year, and that investment appears to have paid off to some extent. because Qatar can now justifiably claim that it has been the venue and basically of so many negotiations that have finally ended in success, and that's going to be celebrated in that was celebrated in Sharm el Sheikh. But I'd like to say that Qatar has looked after President Trump and handled the Trump account, so-called, extremely well, and this is evidence of that. And the fact that these 20 hostages are back is, in a sense, bittersweet news, for a simple reason that we cannot forget what happened on October 7, 2023. We cannot forget the hundreds who have been killed, and we cannot forget the fate of so many of the overwhelming majority of hostages who were in Hamas custody. And yes, quite correctly, our Israeli friend was right. They're in extremely bad shape, but thank God they're alive, and thank God for that. And they can celebrate Passover with their families after 2 very, very anxious years. So I'd like to say that yes, Donald Trump deserves credit, no doubt about it, and for bringing the two sides together. And I think in this, frankly, Netanyahu's attack on Doha was a kind of an eye-opener to the Qataris, that they cannot be immune any longer just because they have a U.S. military facility, a very huge military facility based on Qatari soil. So I think that basically awoke the Qataris to the need for a peace deal, and they awoke their contacts in Hamas, and they have huge contacts. The Al Thani family has ensured that, and they're an extremely talented family, very, very, very versatile in education, etc. And they also ensured that in the White House, Donald Trump was on board. So Donald Trump's 20-point program is now on, but the reality is, frankly, that as far as Gaza is concerned, well, Gaza has to come back to the Palestinian Authority. There is no question that Israel will not tolerate a Hamas in power. They did that from 2005 onwards, and they got in 2023. What happens when a terror group is ignored right next to your boundary? So I'm sure they will ensure that there are methods in which they keep a watch inside Gaza, inside the PA, and within that caveat, I think it will be a welcome thing that the Palestinians have got their freedom, and I think it will be a welcome thing if Hamas agrees to let the Palestinian Authority take charge of Gaza, because the Palestinian Authority accepted the reality of the state of Israel, whereas, if I may say so, Hamas has accepted neither the reality of the state of Israel nor frankly the existence of the Jewish community. Hamas is very explicit. The Jewish community is something that needs to be, I'm not going to go into the unpleasant language and translate it into English, but it's a very terrible thing, and there is no doubt that Netanyahu saw it as existential. It was existential, and it is existential for Israel, for the Jewish people who have suffered so much in over a millennia of history, a millennia and more, and it means so much for them, frankly, to have these 20 back, because they're a very small community, a very talented community, given so many gifts of education and culture and so many other, and literature to the world, and science, don't forget that. But the fact of the matter is, there is no question that the Gaza and the PA and the territory, the West Bank, will have to be terrorist-free. And I'm quite certain that the Israelis will ensure that there's no other way they're going to hand over full power until they are convinced that the entire Palestinian Authority territory, including Gaza, is free of terrorists. The fact that Netanyahu agreed to the fact that there is a two-state solution, when he's been denying it all this time, well, the cynical view could probably be that he knows that this plan will unwind. But the more optimistic view is he finally accepts the reality that you must have a two-state solution, otherwise Israel will never be safe. The Palestinians are a very, very proud people. They have an immense amount of self-respect, and you have to give them territory that they control and they have an ownership of for you to be safe. So I think it's very important for the Netanyahu to understand that there has to be a Palestinian Authority living side by side, peacefully and terror-free, side by side
Yes.
with the state of Israel, which is the only Jewish majority state in the world, and a state, as I said, that's got some of the most talented people on planet Earth, Devika.
Right, absolutely. Professor Nalapa, thank you so much for joining us on NewsX with that perspective. We leave it there and sip into a very short break.